Thank you, Dave. Thank you for the service. My name is Nicole, and I'm a very grateful recovered addict. Um, this chair is really quite scary for me because I'm sharing in front of everyone that I know. This is where my journey started, and I'm so worried I'm going to look like a dickhead. But I've just reminded myself it doesn't actually matter what these people in this room think of me because they actually know me. They probably think that anyway. What matters is carrying the message of recovery, you know, and hopefully I can do that in a way that, some people will understand and know that if I can do it, you can. Um, I'm not going to give you a big drugology. I used a lot of drugs to excess for a very long time. I used to the point that it didn't matter if I died. I'm not saying that. I did at the time. It's really strange, and I know by far out. So I just didn't care. And I told myself that. But oh my God, no. I can't tell you. And it was a very unstable household. And I think when I look back at it now, I kind of grew up learning how to suppress and mask how I felt. Um, our house was violent, it was toxic, and I was sexually abused by another child, not in my family. My mum was very abusive to my baby sister, and there was a lot of domestic violence going on. And that was how I grew up in a house that was that toxic. That's not how my children grow up now. Um, so as soon as I could, I moved out at 16 and I thought, right, lovely, I'm an adult, I can do what I want. I'd already started smoking solid at the age of 14 and it was great. I just got to be stoned all the time. Um, and I moved out at 16 and that carried on. And that's, I picked up a drink at the age of 12, smoking solid by 14, and I moved out at 16. And I considered myself a fully fledged adult. Got myself through college and, numerous long-term boyfriends up to, well, I say numerous, it was three, but I started really young. I was very sexualized at a very early age as well. So I've gone into this adult world with a very, very much what I see now, child's mentality, because I learned how to deal with very traumatic experiences as a child that only adults should have to deal with. So my coping mechanisms and learned responses were definitely not normal. Definitely not normal. I got married really early. I did all the things that I thought adults should be doing. I got married. I bought a house at 19, got married at 21, left him at 23. And the next person I met was extremely exciting and very, very toxic. So there's like a pattern that I've seen my entire life is that my idea of normal is to be in abusive, toxic relationships because that's how my mum treated us. But live in a chaotic household because that's what I grew up in. And to basically not have any self-worth or self-love for myself at all. Because I'd never been taught that or shown that. Bottom line is, my idea of feeling normal was actually to use substances every single day. And this went on for 20 years. This went on until I was 30 and I fell pregnant, by choice. And I suddenly realised, how am I dealing with a pregnancy and a violent ex and not use? Because I used every day to excess. I also held down a career. I used to sit in front of nail customers, filing away, listening, all day. I had 3 different jobs. I held down, run a house, a career, 2 other jobs, a training academy at one point. This was all together with a full-time drug habit and an alcohol problem. And I was very successful at doing all of them things, all in conjunction with each other. So I fell pregnant and, needless to say, I couldn't stay sober or clean for 9 months and I used sporadically. When I had my kids, I went from being someone who didn't care if I was alive to suddenly being responsible for two tiny lives. And I had no idea how to do this. So what I did was I moderated my using and I only used once a week. And that is my story up until I come through the doors in January last year. And in that time, I thought that once a week was fine. I deserved that. Um, I raised the kids on my own because the person I chose, to have kids with was a raging drug addict, an alcoholic, and a very violent individual. And I wondered why things weren't better for me. So I did it alone, and that was financially, physically, and mentally. And it saddens me to say, but for the first, I'd say, 5, 6 years of their life, I was very emotionally dead. I'd come out of using drugs and a very violent, very tight. I actually thought I was going to be killed by this man at one point. Um, and I realised I was very emotionally dead. And in order to feel something, I used because my normal was using all day. That was me just in a normal state of mind, using, sniffing gear all day and all night, and then drinking all night. And so I was just emotionally dead. So what I did was I did things to make me feel stuff, and that was very toxic behavior. Um, I loved my kids and I raised them really well. I wasn't connected with life at all. I was just floating. And I might as well have been dead. I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I still was trying to work with small children. I built, yet another home to a really high standard with really little money. All I did was work. I provide a home for my kids, and it was a nice home. And it got to COVID, and I was like drinking by 11 in the morning, trying to homeschool the kids. That weren't happening. I was sniffing gear 4 or 5 times a week. And that was just how it was. And I've done the geographicals, I've done the moving, different houses, different areas, different jobs. I worked in a strip club when the kids were really young to provide holidays and carpet on the floor and paint on the walls and beds and mattresses. And it was a great job. I'd done it for years and years and years. But I had to realize that was my first big realization that my drug use was bigger than what I could manage. Because for me, walking into an environment where men want to sniff gear and I'm getting paid to do that and drink their booze, fucking great. Free night out. I was also drinking, driving home most nights. And I realized at one point, and I mean, twisted like this, waiting for police cars to pull me over. And I realized at some point, my kids are going to wake up in the morning soon with my brother childminding them, and I'm not going to walk through that door. My depression was rife then, really bad. I was just in a hole. I was in an absolute hole. Drugs made me feel safe, bottom line. So I come out of the street club and started working from home because at least that would keep me safe. And then I realised actually my using behaviour carried on at home. And this has gone on for years. I've managed to moderate it for months at a time, only sporadic. I say sporadic once a week. But if something happened, like lockdown or my dog passed away, I used for 5 days out of 7. I was absolutely heartbroken. And the running theme here is that I get to a point where I just don't care anymore. I just don't care. I use to such excess. I don't eat and I don't sleep, and I'm vomiting up bile and pure alcohol. And I don't give a fuck at the damage I'm doing. And that's the scary thing. I have a hole in my septum. I was devastated when that arrived. I was in Cornwall and my life was literally falling apart, and I was using cocaine as my crutch. And I was in and out of court battles, and it was just absolutely engulfing me. I don't know how I clung on, but I did. And a hole appeared in my septum, and I was absolutely broken by it. I thought 25 years of using, and now it's happened. Did I stop using? No, I just was really careful how I used. And And I put it down to my circumstances and the heartbreak I was going through. And I left Cornwall homeless with two children and three dogs and put all my stuff in storage with no job. And I hit some severe depression for a good year. And I thought it's okay because when I get the next house, it'll be better. You know, if you've done this pattern, I think most of us have done it. We've tried to stop using by doing the things like moving, new boyfriends, new jobs, more money, less money. Bottom line is, it's when it comes to it, I realised when I got back to Essex and I promised my family I would come to meetings and I promised them I wouldn't touch gear. It was just as my crutch, just for that real small period of time. I've lost everything, 22 grand in debt, no home. And I just thought, fuck, how did I get here again? I've done that a few times. And I'm like, it's okay, because the comeback's always bigger than the setback. And I'll always come back bigger. And then I hand all my power over to drugs, alcohol, and a man. And I do the same pattern again until I'm broken. And I keep saying to myself every time, how the fuck did I end up here again? Can't be just sniffing a bit of bag once a week. Can't be that. I honestly didn't know what was wrong with me until I come through the doors. And a really smiley man sitting at the front here said the words, you don't ever have to drink and use again. All you have to do is get a sponsor and a big book and do the work. And I was like, I don't really think some written work's really going to help me because I haven't actually got a drug problem. I haven't got a drug problem. I just use once a week until it got to a 3-day bender. And I, for the first time in my life, I experienced noises, voices, fucking I see shit that weren't real. And I thought, that's it, I've gone mentally insane. That was God's intervention, finally tipping me over the edge. There was no way back. I either stay insane, and I've had loads of really ominous warnings. My brain shut down once. I only had 3 lines that I remember. Ambulance was called, you know what I mean? And the paramedics, after I threw them out, said, you know, this is her wake up call. Her brain is shutting down. She carries on to stay like this. And I just stopped using for a month. You know, I thought I'd just try to do a little bit. There's been so many times I've been shown that this is bigger than me and my health, and this will fucking kill me if I'm not careful. And I honestly thought that I could do it by myself. Found my way through the doors of CA because I just knew I needed something. I needed propping up with something. I needed more information. For me, self-knowledge is the key to fixing life's problems. Do a bit of reading on Google, action it, you know, a bit of self-help. I've done counselling, I've done drug therapies that I've paid for. I've done it all. And I thought, oh, fuck it, I just go sit in a meeting. And you know what? I felt so uncomfortable. I felt so fucking uncomfortable. Everyone knew each other here, and I didn't want to be here. And I turned up a bit late, and it was pouring with rain, and I just didn't want to be here. But I knew, where else am I going to go? Because I was out of options. I was really out of options. And I sat in these meetings for 3 months and I kept using for 3 or 4 months. But I kept listening and I kept coming back. And even though I didn't want to be here, I kept talking to people that I didn't want to talk to because they're all really happy and smiling like you all are now. And it was so uncomfortable because inside I was fucking dying. I was crippled. I've rebuilt my life so many times. How can I not do this? I've had career after career. I've raised kids on my own. I've flown them all around the world. I have had, my life has been on the outside, fucking fantastic when it wasn't burnt to the ground. How can I not use for longer than 7 days? And I just didn't fucking understand. A bit of bookwork was really going to solve it because I'm not a fucking addict. I class myself as an addict, but I'm not really an addict. I'm not chemically addicted. I just couldn't grasp it until it broke me emotionally. And I thought, I'm actually going to fucking die soon. The self-loathing and the self-hatred that I felt for myself absolutely fucking engulfed me. I couldn't cope. I honestly couldn't cope. And I walked into a meeting and I was absolutely broken to fuck. And I sat here and in front of Zoom users and in front of people that had watched me coming in and just like flakily sitting there for 3 months, I fucking begged for help. And I'm glad I did because I was just willing to do a bit of work. Buy a book, yep, no worries. I took it home with me that night. Get a sponsor, yep, okay, took two numbers. One was my sponsor by the next morning. One is still my friend today. Um, and I just how I felt there, I couldn't delay. I'd already gone 4 days without using. It was coming up to my fifth or sixth day. I was going to use if I did not do something. So I needed to do the work and I needed to do it like tomorrow. And I was given the highlighting to do. Fuck me, my arm nearly fell off. That's a lot of highlighting to do in one stint, the first three chapters. But I did it. And then I did and started my steps. And I couldn't wait. I managed to get more than 7 days and I picked up that 7 day chip. And I was like, okay, the next one's gonna be fucking hard. Like I've done 2 weeks once 2 years ago. So I could do like 10, 14 days. Can I do more than that? No, I can't. And I honestly just had to get honest with myself. When I read step one, you know, is your life unmanageable? Completely, completely. On the outside, I do everything that needs to be done, and inside, I'm fucking dead inside, and I'm running riot with my emotional state. I'm sleeping with my kid's dad fucking cheats on me. I am doing jobs to earn money that most people wouldn't. I'm still shoplifting. I am basically a dodgy little bastard. And I'll happily admit that. I've been that person for so many years. It's a very natural state for me. You know, when I was in Cornwall, sniffing £1,000 a week and drinking every single day, making my kids walk themselves to school because I was up all fucking night. I managed in 3 days to shoplift £1,000 worth of Lego, make kit out 4 kids worth for Christmas. What I'm capable of doing is this, and yet I wasn't capable of staying clean. So I really had to look at how unmanageable my life is because I allow it to be and I make it that way. And there was no delay. I had to do that step work. I had to do it. I went on holiday 6 weeks clean and my sponsor dropped me. And I was like, and you know what? Most people would have gone, well, I'm on holiday now, fuck it. And instead, me being me, because this is what I'm like anyway. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I ain't going to give anyone the satisfaction of knowing that that was the excuse I'm going to use. And I come home and I did it. And I thought, oh God, I don't need to test myself like that again too quick. And then at 4 months clean, I got told I got cancer. And I was like, that's a fucking curveball I didn't expect. But I did expect it. I've been waiting for it for years. There's no way that I can abuse my body the way I did and live the life that I did without having something fucking big kick me in the ass. Because 2 years before that, I pretty much wished I was fucking dead. My using was astronomical. I had a hole in my septum. I was then homeless. And I actually just wished I was dead. I thought, fuck this shit. I can't do it no more. And then cancer, you know, I truly believe that God was asking me a fucking question. So I had a biopsy done and I really hoped for the best result as a cyst. But I knew that I weren't going to be that lucky. And God was asking me a question. Well, you always fucking keep using to the point you want to die. You're in depression and you wish you were dead. Do you want to be dead? Most people would have used that as thinking, oh my God, I might fucking die, and used on that. And I thought, no, fuck you. Not to God, but fuck you. I was really fucking angry about it because it weren't right. I've just got clean. Life had just become manageable. I'd stopped shoplifting. I was doing the work. I was actually realizing that my routine of running myself into the ground Monday to Friday was so destructive. No wonder I used it the weekend. You know, no wonder I kept going back to people that treat me bad. No wonder I allow my friends to come around with her bullshit. No wonder I used, because my life was full of toxic shit that I allowed to happen. And I started clearing all of that out. Things got nice. I was productive, new job, had a puppy, started being available for my kids, and I just thought, if I use on this, I'm going to make this cancer so much worse. It will fucking kill me if I don't kill myself. And I honestly knew that I didn't know how far I would take my using off the back of my own fear. Because what I'd realised is my entire life, I grew up from a very young girl being so fucking scared, scared of what people thought of me, scared I was a failure as a person, scared I was going to fail at my job, scared of everything, scared someone was going to treat me bad, scared that if I looked at people in the eye when I spoke to them, they could see through me. They could see I was a drug addict. Even in my 30s when I had the kids, I couldn't talk to people properly because I'm sure that they could see what I was doing inside. They could see it in me. I just was terrified all the time, but put on this massive bravado, like, fuck you, I'm fine. So on the outside, I was, but in the inside, just crippled with fear my entire life. No wonder I used. And I really had to dig deep into that book and I really had to discuss, my using. I wasn't chemically dependent. My problem was I fucking couldn't manage my life. I couldn't live in this life carrying the pain and the resentment and the torture of my childhood and this and that person and all that shit I'd done. I couldn't do it sober until I learned how to do it sober. And I clung on for dear life. I fucking did. I really clung on. I voiced when I felt scared. I took the power out of it. I humbly begged God. I begged him. I was already praying. I asked God for a clean and sober day right at the beginning, and he gave me one. And I asked him again the next day, and he gave me another. And I just kept doing that. Then I started asking, help me be productive during my day. And I was, help me fucking not lose the plot and punch someone because I'm due on, because that's normal. Chase people down the road and get out of my car. I will fucking have a fight. And I prayed, "Oh, please, God, please fucking simmer me down." And he did. So when I humbly begged him, please keep me with my kids, he did. And I come through it. And it wasn't any easy feat, as any of you know me know. That was really, really difficult. And not at one, that's a lot. I can't even say it. I want to say it, but I can't. There was only one point I thought of using, and that was after I'd had surgery and it was my birthday. And my God, I was so lonely. It was crippling me. I was alone. I was in pain. My family were there. And I just felt so fucking sad. And I asked God, I remember crying in my bed saying, why is it in the biggest times of my life I'm always alone doing this? Because I don't fucking learn the lessons until it's really painful. That's when I really have to look at it. I'm alone because I don't know how to love myself. I don't know how to be a part of this world without a substance. So I had to learn pretty quick. My step work, I really didn't find it hard. I cried about needing to start my step 4. I was really apprehensive about dragging up that shit. I didn't want to write about it. And I cried about it for a full week. And I stamped my feet to my sponsor and said, I don't want to do this. And she simply said to me, how free do you want to be? And I was like, well, I can't sit in this emotional pain any longer. I've done it for 44 years. I don't want it no more. I don't want it. And I was really forced to start that work. And I definitely didn't want to read it to her. And there was a lot of tears. But I was glad I got it out. Because finally I could put that to one side. As it turns out, I've read a step 4 3 times in fucking a year, nearly. Like by the third time reading it out like someone else's life, it was easy. But it was nice to work through the steps and to get to the next stage and the next stage, because the more I did, I felt like the more I was leaving behind all of that pain and that shit. And because the more step work I did, the cleaner I stayed, The nicer I behaved in my life, the more I felt connected to my kids, the further I felt like I was actually starting to live a life that I deserved. So that one night that I thought, I could just drop the kids off and then go and pick up. I could just go home. And then I honestly considered going through block lists and all that stupid shit that we do. And I could have found a number. I could have done it. It would take me half hour. I would have done it. I could have walked into this meeting and picked up another white kiwi. Could I have done that to myself? Could I have felt that emotional pain of how I felt my entire life being a failure? And I honestly gave that real consideration. And I really cried that I felt that way. I was in limbo again. I was obviously still detoxing from anesthetic, and I'd had my face and neck cut open, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? I'm still trying to deal with that. And I called my sponsor and I called a friend of mine who said to me, you don't actually want to sniff gear. You just want to not feel the way you do right now. And I understand that. So instead, I cuddled my dogs and I cried through Netflix and I went to bed and I got up the next day and I thought, thank God, thank you, God, I didn't. Because how I felt that night is how I'd felt for so long. That was a normal way of feeling. That's normal. How I felt the next day was so fucking proud of myself. Was at the lowest ebb I've really considered it. I didn't. That was my first big test. I've got through cancer. What, you want to go and use because you feel lonely? It just really wasn't a choice. My working amends are always for my kids. Always. I actually feel like I give a fuck. I don't just behave like I give a fuck. I don't just ask how their day is. I actually genuinely fucking care. And my kid's being bullied by a young girl at the minute, and I've had to do some tough love. Well, she's 2 years younger than you. Sort it out. And he hates me for that because I'm not fixing it for him like mummy's always done. And I'm on his case about schoolwork, and I actually feel like shit today. I've come out of my slippers, for God's sake, and my head is a little bit crazy. I didn't know what I was going to say tonight. I just trusted that God would help me say the right words and not chat too much shit. But life still shows up. And as uncomfortable as I feel, all I've got to do is actually speak about it and take the power out of it. Because if I don't do that, I'm living in myself. I can't be there for anyone. I can't be there for my kids. Sponsorship right now is absolutely phenomenal. I have 2 ladies, one that's working so hard, and hopefully she's on here tonight. And every one day she gets, I'm so fucking proud of her because I remember them first 30 days and how hard they were. If you're new here, all you've got to do is connect. Don't be scared like I was, because you'll just sit in it for months like I did. The quicker you do the work, the quicker you get away from where you was and you start to live a life that you actually want. I have so much gratitude for this meeting. I have so much gratitude for the friends that I've made in here that kiss me hello, genuinely hug me hello. You do, and it means an awful lot. You have no idea. And just for today, I get to not act like an absolute prick, because I felt and thought I was all that. How dare you do that to me? Today, I don't need to do that. All I need to do is actually say I'm in control of my own life, my own thoughts, and my own feelings. Pray for God's help and help others. And I feel so much better for that. Now I feel nervous. Now stop talking. Thank you for listening to me. If you're struggling, get yourself a sponsor and get a big book. Just do the work. It's fantastic. I'll leave it there.